ancient Greek literature for this lecture is quite simple. Our university's motto is Recte Sapere Fons. Sapere can be translated as dare to know, dare to be wise. It is the present infinitive of sapio, meaning I taste or am wise. And since recte is an adverb, meaning rightly or correctly, and fons a singular nominative noun, meaning fountain, source, then we can translate our university motto as fountain or source of correct or right wisdom or knowledge. And we can also render it as dare to know correctly the source. My former teacher, Henry Thompson, taking the three key elements of the motto, have translated it as for knowledge and sound judgment. The university motto was appropriated from a line in Horace Ars Poetica 309 and it has presented some difficulties. Scribendi recte sapere et precupium et fons. The source and beginning of writing correctly is knowledge. The search for knowledge is the hallmark of a university. It is various departments, units, and courses that are interconnected and interrelated because they are endeavors around which all human life revolves. The university has been rightly described as a place for the acquisition of knowledge, the confident mastery of it, and adroit employment of it for the cultivation of the mind and the spirit, and the enlightened capability of seeing the connected nature of things. Ancient Greek civilization, which emerged into limelight around 776 BC, is one of the most brilliant, the most enduring, and the most influential in world history, and is without doubt the source of Western education, culture, and knowledge to which we all subscribe today. It is to the exploration of this phenomenal civilization that I have devoted all my years of classical scholarship. Classical scholarship recently developed a new focus of inquiry titled classical reception studies, described by Hadwick and Strick as the ways in which Greek and Roman material has been transmitted, translated, exacted, interpreted, rewritten, reimaged, and represented. Life is the most precious asset in the entire universe. It is the essence of our being and coming into being, and the culmination of our existence. World literatures are full of patterns, examples, sets of representations of and for this greatest phenomenon. Ancient Greek literature is splendid with these paradigms which inform us of the people that use it, since every form of art is deeply rooted in the society. Greek literary history is archaeologically traced to the prehistoric Mycenaean civilization of the 2nd millennium BC. The classical period is supposed to contrast the archaic period, and it is roughly dated from about 500 to 330 BC. And this marks the highest point of Greek culture, when the Greeks set enduring standards of cultural excellence. I intend to adopt a ring composition technique in this presentation. The ring structure is also called chiasmus or chiastic structure. It's a very valuable tool that allows the poet to end a narrative where he starts it. This type of structure is typical of Greek literature of the archaic period and found generously in oral literature. It is a device that is observed in particular in the works of the revered poets of ancient Greece, Homer. Homer is the one traditionally credited with two epics that stand at the beginning of written Western literature, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Despite the arguments regarding whether there really was a poet by the name Homer who authored the works, yet the formative influence of the Homeric epics in shaping Greek culture was widely recognized, and Homer was described as the teacher of Greece. We should be demonstrating the next few paragraphs how the ring structure functions, and shall be doing this focus attention to the Iliad, whose narrative technique provides an excellent example of the ring structure format. Like the first example and the second example of the ring structure is seen in book 24 of the Iliad, and this is the model that is applied to this lecture. This is the scene from the book 24 when Priam, the old king of Troy, takes ransom and departs in order to persuade Achilles to release the corpse of his son. The son Hector, the stalwart of the Trojan army, had been killed by Achilles. The pattern set is A, B, C, D, C, B, A. I have considered the ring structure the perfect tool for this lecture, also because the ring or circle itself is a symbol of life. It is impossible to examine all the paradigms of life as evident in Greek literature in just one endeavor of this type. Therefore, we will take a few concepts, namely the concept of life, heroism, and death, the concept of listening to and delivery of lectures, and the concept of corruption and chivalry. Concept heroism, and death. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I'd like to start this part of the discussion with the first three stanzas of a poem of mine titled Without Reference, Life is Short. Life is short, so let us be sated in eating the frivolity of joy. Life is too short. Then grant not pecuniary necessity the annihilation of our hopes. Life is far too short. Let not love be obliterated in the titillating desires of passion. The ancient Greeks, as attested in their literature, are well aware of the sentiments expressed in the lines of poetry above. Brevity of life is lamented in virtually all the genres of their literature, but it is to Homer we must turn in order to examine their conception of life and its mitigation. The Homeric world was made up of kings, commoners, slaves, the army, and warfare was an integral part of Greek life because theirs was a world fraught with many dangers and much insecurity. In such a society, success basically means the successful physical defense of one's home or one's army. Clearly attached to this concept is civilization. The society which Homer describes is a ruthlessly competitive one, in which males place absolute premium on their public reputation, and in which every hero is utterly self-interested. The masculine need for renown is the hallmark of this society, in which a man lives for glory and for the honor extended to him by the Pope. It is for honor that Achilles himself opted for a brief life, but honorable one, and since death is inevitable, as Sapedium observes, we may as well fight and win for self-glory or make glory possible for others. The Iliad is full of records of deaths of heroes, and on each occasion, the narrator does not fail to evoke pathos at the death of heroes who are often regarded as godlike. A hero may even be compared to several gods at once, as when Agamemnon is described to be in eyes and head like Zeus, who delights in thunder, in garden like Ares, in chest like Poseidon. However, there's one great difference between the gods and men. The gods are deathless and ageless, while men are mortal. It is the consequence of this mortality that the plot envisages at each description of the death of a hero. To a modern reader, the pathos and tragedy of loss is more intense as the heroes fall from a godlike stature to a helpless mortal who bites the dust or whose eyes are shut forever. Hercules' lament at the death of her son Hector illustrates the human pathos that often accompanies the loss of a hero or a loved one. You are my pride night and day, and you are the defender of all the men and women of Troy who hailed you like a god. Alive, you were their great hero, but now death and fate have caught you. When Homer sings his poem of war, he at the same time sings of the attendant death and horrors of death. Embedded in Homer's poems of war, in other words, is the Greek concept of the consequences of war, which cut short the life of man, and underlining the fact that man is oftentimes the cause of the brevity of his life. Greek literature postulates a vertically structured 3-tier universe. The first top level is the invisible level occupied by the gods, and the second middle is occupied by human beings. Hidden far beneath this is the underworld, the third tier, the dark subterranean realm, the kingdom of Hades, to which are dead the soul of man descends, and where the dead are permanently domiciled as mindless, disembodied hosts or shades. Such an existence is very much abhorred by the Greeks. In the Homeric poems, for example, to be alive and to see the light of the sun, and while I have breath in my lungs and my knees are active, are recurrent expressions that support this assertion. To the ancient Greeks, death is to leave the light of the sun and to go into the dark, or to have one limb undone. One clear example of this is to be found in Book 11 of the Odyssey, where Odysseus descends to the underworld, meets the ghost of Achilles, the greatest of the Achaean soldiers that went to war in Troy. The following exchange takes place between Odysseus and Achilles. Odysseus says, I have not yet taught Achaea, nor set foot in my own land, but have suffered endless troubles. Yes, no man has been more blessed than you, Achilles, nor will be in time to come, since we Argives considered you a god while you lived, and now you rule a power among the unliving. Do not grieve, your death. Achilles' response is sweet. Glorious Odysseus, don't try to reconcile me to dying. I'd rather serve as another man's laborer, as a poor peasant without land, and be alive on earth, than be the Lord of all the lifeless dead. Achilles' lament here indicates that he would rather prefer to be one of the lowliest humans on earth than the king of the dead. Achilles was king in the underworld because of the glory he achieved on earth. But now dead, he would have been willing to throw away all the glory just to be alive. The glory he strove so hard for on earth has become of no value to him. This is the same Achilles who, when given the choice between a long, peaceful, and happy life without fame and a short, famous life, decided to choose the latter. Jansen described the regrets of Achilles as follows. Achilles seems to have forgotten all about the immortality of glorious fame. He draws no comfort from the honor he receives among humankind for his heroism on the battlefield. Achilles' lament is full of pathos of one who finds too late that any human condition, even slavery, will be preferable to death. Let us leave Omar here and take another concept. Concept of listening and delivering lectures. Plutarch, otherwise known as the Encyclopedic of Antiquity, in one of his collections, Morality, wrote numerous essays which show not only prodigious common sense, but also have clear applicability to contemporary conditions, and have been described as so entertaining that they should not be neglected by persons living in any period of world history. We like to pay close attention in this lecture to his essay entitled De Recta Ratione Audiendi, or De Audite for short. This is because of its relevance to our present discussion. The introduction of Plutarch's Morality, as published in the Web Classical Library, presents an in-depth analysis of the essay. I'd like to reproduce parts of it here. The essay has astonishingly a modern tone. The different types of students, the diffident students, the lazy student, the contemptuous one, and so on and so forth, are portrayed in a thoroughly realistic manner. Stress is laid on the great contrast between scholars, particularly the philosopher, and the popular lecturer, the sophist. Then, as at now, it sends people who are not always willing to listen patiently to the scholar, but more often inclined to resort to lectures of a lighter and more entertaining sort. This analysis will have to suffice here, so that the application to contemporary life and issues can be unimputed on the resulting leg of this lecture. Concept of corruption and chivalry. In 2005, I published an article titled Sophocles' Philoctetes as an Allegory for Contemporary Nigeria. It is on this article, using the Sophoclean characters in the play Philoctetes as prototypes of Nigerian leaders and youths, that I rely for this session. The Philoctetes opened with Odysseus, whom of all men Philoctetes hates the most, and Neoptolemus, son of Achilles, arriving on the coast of Lemnos. They have been sent to bring Philoctetes back as an oracle, as predicted that the fall of Troy would only be possible with the presence of Philoctetes. Odysseus argues that Neoptolemus, the son of Achilles, the son of Achilles, on the morality of what he plans to do, that is, trick Philoctetes. Neoptolemus agrees to undertake the assignment. Neoptolemus agrees, and Philoctetes arrives, and Neoptolemus successfully deceives him with a false story that he's taking Philoctetes back home. Philoctetes is seized by racking pains, in the course of which he hands over his bow and arrows to Neoptolemus and falls asleep, having first secured Neoptolemus' promise not to leave him behind in Lemnos. When Philoctetes wakes up, Neoptolemus, overcome with sympathy and remorse, tells him the truth and returns his bows and arrows to him. The theme of the play is the suffering and relief of Philoctetes and the moral choice faced by Philoctetes and Neoptolemus. The Odysseus we meet in this play is a totally different man from the one we have met in Homer, and different from the Odysseus of Sophocles' Ajax. In Homer, Odysseus is the Odysseus of the naval wits. Sophoclean play Ajax, Odysseus has seemingly taken to heart the lesson for moderation and reverence to the gods. But in the Philoctetes, Odysseus avers that falsehood is not shameful if it is advantageous. Neoptolemus and and Odysseus converse. Do you not find it vile to say this line? What if the lion brings our rescue with it? How can a man not blush to say such things? When one does something for gain, one need not blush. In the prologue, Odysseus suggests that Neoptolemus captured Philoctetes and his bow by tricking him. Neoptolemus at first refuses, but ultimately agrees, realizing that only those can he win the glory of taking Troy. Not only is Odysseus quite comfortable urging Neoptolemus to tell a lie, but is also unable to understand nor appreciate the young man's reluctance to lie. He is persuaded to abandon the standards of morality imposed by his upbringing, and he carries out the assignment. But his sympathy for Philoctetes got the better of him, and he restores Philoctetes' bow. Odysseus says to Neoptolemus, "You have turned back. There's hurry in your step. Will you tell me why?" Neoptolemus replies, "I go to undo the wrong I have done." A strange thing, I say. What wrong was that? I did wrong when I obeyed you and the Greeks. What did we make you that was unworthy? I practiced craft and treachery with success. On whom? Will you do something rash now? Nothing rash. I'm going to give back something. What? I'm afraid to hear what you will say. Back to the man I took it from, this bow. You cannot mean you are going to give it back. Just that to my shame. Unjustly, I obtained it. Can you mean this in earnest? Yes. Unless it is not earnest to tell you the truth. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, as is expected of the ring composition technique, which you may be all have adopted in preparing this lecture, it is time to begin the reverse drum in order to effectively complete the closing of the ring as it were. And I do this by elucidating contemporary life, especially as a Nigerian, with the paradigms that I have identified from ancient Greek literature and which I have discussed earlier on. The Philoctetes is primarily a character study. And in reading this play through the lens of contemporary Nigeria, one cannot fail to identify Nigerian counterparts of the main characters, thus making his interpretation in the context of contemporary events in Nigeria both valuable and valuable. We start with one of the main characters, the incomparable Odysseus. He's an excellent paradigm of average contemporary Nigeria. His fellows are legion in our country. We are used of 419, kidnapping, ritual killings, sundry other evils thrive. Nigeria's worst signature is corruption, as it perpetually maintains the record as one of the most corrupt countries in the world, even up to today. The ruling class comprising the political office holders and public servants have seized public wealth and established a get-rich-quick, no matter the cost culture, that promotes corruption at all levels and in all sectors in the country, making corruption the most lucrative enterprise in Nigeria. This explains why nothing seems to work in the country and why instead of progressing, most things are retrogressing, and there's a pervasive decline and rehabilitation in virtually all matters in Nigeria. Stories of corruption of Nigerian leaders fill the media on a daily basis. The examples I cited in my 2005 article have become stale. Some of these examples include the case of the then Inspector General of Police, the 55 million naira scam involving the Minister of Education, the 40-60 million naira property, and so on and so forth. All these, as I have just accepted, are old examples. Some of the more recent ones include the Dasuki scandal of the alleged diversion and misappropriation of money meant for the purchase of arms for Nigerian army to fight Boko Haram insurgency, a generous alleged diversion of military funds for his personal use, and a petroleum minister's alleged misappropriation of Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation funds. It has also been alleged that huge amounts of money belonging to some past and present leaders have been discovered in foreign banks. As I was writing this lecture, we were inundated with reports of the greed and the unabated effrontery of the Nigerian lawmakers involving the economy of the nation and the efforts to rewrite the laws. And there were so many letters on the media protesting. And there was one in particular that I quoted in full in the full manuscript. And what I want to find out is whether this letter was actually written by Femi Falana or not, it doesn't matter. The contents are clear, and they demonstrate the selfishness of our leaders in this country. In spite of the huge outcry in both Orthodox and social media against the move of the National Assembly to amend the laws, it is so values as well as passion for their nation and compassion for the people. They have unified the affairs of the nation with a culture of impunity that allows them to get away with the rape of the nation. When the country is afflicted with such leaders, development and progress cannot be its hallmark. It is therefore did not come to me as a surprise when TV 360 online reported that the data from the 2016 World Ranking has ranked Nigeria top of the 10 most corrupt countries in the world. The ruling class, which Odysseus represents in the Philoctetes, is like our Nigerian political class, our main affliction in this country. The nation fought a long battle to free itself from the shackles of military despotism, a battle that was seemingly won in 1999. However, the Nigerian dream for a meaningful and better life has still been totally shattered. Many had hoped that the return of the military to the barracks will usher in a class of patriotic politicians. The reality is that the country has substituted one evil class of Nigerians for another. Politicians have frustrated the institution of solid democratic structures and a vibrant democratic culture in the country. The tragic elements in the Sokotrian play are reflected in the suffering and desertion of Philoctetes on the islands of Lemos for 10 years by his fellow Greeks, just because they could not stand the cries of pain and they stayed from the rude to God when the national unity leading the Greeks to an altar. The treatment meted out to Philoctetes by the Greek mirrors our attitude in Nigeria to our own heroes. We abandon our heroes in their time of need and do not come to their aid when they have sustained injuries, even on national assignments. For example, the man who designed the Nigerian flag languished in his dilapidated house in the Kotel for many years. We do the same to sportsmen and women. And it is a common knowledge in Nigeria today that a retired person may wait for as long as 5 years or more before getting his or gratuity. And the issue of non-payment of pension appears a calculated attempt at denying workers their deserved rights after retirement. We encounter on a daily basis distinguished senior citizens and hard-looking old people reduced to regular. It was even alleged that some time ago, when the governor of the state was asked why the pensioners in the state are not being paid, he replied that those living are not yet being paid, let alone the dead. Even now, the so-called living are not being paid their salaries. Everybody knows that at the time of writing this, even now, that most states in Nigeria owe their workers at least 3 months' salaries. The suffering of Philoctetes epitomize the life of an average Nigerian who must bear excruciating pain daily. Philoctetes is almost pathetically grateful to see Lemos and his men. His anxious questions lest they should reject him demonstrate the loneliness and depression he must have endured for 10 long years alone. This makes it easy for him to be deceived by Lemos. The acute poverty and suffering of an average Nigerian render us easy prey to exploitation by all manner of men, not even accepting the numerous pastors in our midst. An average Nigerian gets poorer by the day, while the ruling class keeps multiplying and amassing wealth for itself. In the face of the dire situation of our nation, is there any hope? I have asked this question in a poem of mine titled "Dare We to Go?" with which, with your permission, Mr. Vice Chancellor, I'd like to quote at this point. With eyes smeared with pain and hearts washed dry by tears, expectations honored out by season of unhonored vows, dare we to go? For it begins to be the demonstration which comes to our close. We dance the praise dance and sing the songs of snuggle bread in the marketplaces. To break the rock and snatch our heritage from the plunderer and our ransomed freedom from the set of fears, we got impaled in crowds which stopped our adult schools in liberty. Dare we to go? by which he is initially convinced that by carrying out the deception of Philoctetes, he will be considered a wise and great man. It is in the character of Neoptolemus that this play offers the greatest hope and the best alternative for Nigeria. Every Nigerian youth must assume the Neoptolemus stance in rejecting the corrupt standards set by their leaders and even their father figures, as symbolized by Odysseus. As the influence of Odysseus over Neoptolemus declines, and the bridge between them is final, so also must the youth of our nation determine and make a complete break from the chains that have led them to a life of desperately seeking to fulfill inordinate ambitions irrespective of the cost. Moreover, every Nigerian must be dedicated to the cause of Nigeria. Like the young Neoptolemus, we must challenge on a continuous basis the opportunistic tendencies, corruption, mismanagement, and bad leadership in the decisions we make in both our private and public lives. Nigerians must be united not only by common purpose, but also by common values: duty, integrity, honor, love, hope, morality, progress, courage, patriotism, nationalism, industry, service, prudence, the fear of God, and sense of in which maybe as the pastor declared that some people will be millionaires and everybody will think that it applies to them. The pastor in the example is clearly culpable of negatively inciting the expectation of its hearers through what it has. There is just a tendency to think that success or what is called breakthroughs come only from prayers. We do not take into cognizance other factors responsible for success, such as hard work, preparation, commitment, and so on. Breakthrough itself indicates success that comes from years of hard work, laboring to achieve something. Pastor Folake explains breakthrough by likening it to water springs or streams breaking forth from under the ground. For the water to break forth, it must have been forcing its way for ages or for years before all of a sudden it breaks through. The breakthrough that we see all of a sudden. In fact, and so we are saying that this freedom translates into an absence of control and that they are no longer subject to control. Rooted then was that exhibition of lack of control are actually an indication of lack of education. For the person from tribal to manhood, it's not a casting out of control, but a recasting of the controlling agents. Rooted young scholars have identified many students in today's Nigerian universities. Many of them believe that admission to the university or other tertiary institution is a license for all sorts of behavior that result in various negative outcomes. The more recent disruption of peace on the campus of the University of Ibadan is a result of such erroneous belief that an admission to the university is a license to take the law into one's hands. Luther also has a word for teachers in this essay. He draws a distinction between two types of teachers by analyzing their characters. He likens one set of teachers to the philosopher, characterized as committed, rightly focused, knowledgeable, and disciplined. These are the types that Oshundari refers to when he says, lecturers were on top of their disciplines. They took their teaching seriously and never joked with research. And what wonderful role models most of them turned out to be. The other set of teachers, who some represent, so they entertain rather than teach. Oshundari identifies such as those that come 30 minutes later to a 1 hour lecture, back 10 minutes before the end, the so-called senior colleague, who now too busy to teach, comes out into a located private contract or political bombastic terms and capturing the impressionable minds of their naive students with non-achievable ideals. Plutarch also has a piece of advice for audience similar to one seated here and a lecturer which I represent today. For an audience and for an audience in the classroom. As I read Plutarch, I could not help one or two chuckles. He says that even with the most hopeless speaker, the routine behavior as a lecturer is to sit upright without lounging or sprawling, keep your eye on the speaker, to maintain an attitude of active attention and Plutarch points out that the success of the lecture will depend upon the way the audience listens, as well as the way the speaker speaks. You must be careful to avoid boredom, frowning, a grim expression, letting your gaze go, twisting your body about, crossing your legs, yes, nodding, whispering to one another, groaning, yawning with sleepiness, and letting your head droop. If you do this sort of thing, it is your fault if the lecture goes wrong. Well, if reality. In fact, the sacredness of our vocation, our source of knowledge, compels us to contemplate with the aim of providing solutions to the crisis which presently plague our dear nation. The remote and immediate sources of the Nigerian war are back with us today in a more terrifying and compelling combination: a crumbling economy, a hungry, angry, increasingly desperate parliament populace, growing unrest, ethnic killings, sectarian murders, and inept, arrogant, obsessive, and corrupt political class, ethnic and religious divisions throughout the nation, and even within the armed forces and so on. Agitations for secession, especially that of the movement, that of Massa, and the renewal call for Biafra are all an indication that we, as a nation, have mismanaged the peace we garnered after the end of the war, and we have not learned adequate lessons from the experience of the 30-month war. If we accept the agreement that the poet of the Iliad artistically portrays a coherent description of human reality, including the reality of war, in order to convey the warning that the central feature in war is chaos, and acts of inhumanity show no restraint under the brutalizing influence of war, then Professor Uche articulates warning that anybody that experienced the Biafra war won't talk about war again should be considered most opposite. The issue of the Folake herdsmen and of incessant attacks and reprisal attacks between them and their host communities should be rightly taken as a threat to national security. However, it is an accepted and well-trumpeted mantra that war is not the solution to the issue of the Nigerian state. The undisputed facts of history of Nigeria support this position, which is reiterated by Uche Azikwe among others. In her reaction, she says, "I told the line of my husband, one Nigeria. If Nigeria disintegrates, I don't think there's any part of the country that will survive it." The solutions to the Nigerian questions are not far to seek and have been identified thanks to that number. Some of these are social justice, good governance, revisit of possible implementation of the recent constitutional conference, rebuilding of the second Niger bridge, and so on and so forth, ensuring an equitable federal character in appointments, and so on and so forth. Moreover, the federal government must do everything possible to provide jobs for our teeming and qualified youths who are jobless after listening to lectures in higher institutions. Let us create jobs for them so that they can positively realize their full potential. And finally, those of us in the ivory towers must continue to warn of the dangers that beset our dear nation. Like the quest of the Iliad, we must continue to sound the gun, emphasizing that there is no glory in war. We should not be discouraged by the simple lackadaisical attitude of our leaders to warnings and admonitions earlier provided. We must continue our lamentations until our nation emerges from a quagmire of fraud and decadence. To know is not enough. We must do. We must do by speaking out. To forestall possible disintegration of our dear nation, we must continually launch a Jeremiad on the conditions of things in general. My research contributions. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, in the past 22 years, I've done research and published in the broad areas of Greek and African studies, which can be divided more delicately into the following major areas: literary and cultural studies, women's studies, epistemology, and social ethics. I've also engaged in some creative writing, employing the literary genres and styles of classical antiquity to produce new works that address issues of concerns that will engage readers' interest. Conclusion. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I have attempted in the course of this lecture to prove that the study of classes is an attractive and relevant option to an African in contemporary society, and have sought to extend the frontiers of classical scholarship by charting the way for a comparative classical and African studies. I have also tried to demonstrate in this lecture the universal concept that human lives are interconnected, and we are meant to learn from one another's experiences. The interplay of forces from ancient Greek literature to our contemporary enthusiasm from all nations and ages. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, a Yoruba habit suggests that it is outright robbery when a good deed done is not acknowledged. Permit me therefore, sir, to render a fee, albeit insufficient, acknowledgement of good deeds that I've enjoyed both as a human being and in my career as an academic. First of all, my thanks go to the Almighty God and the Father of all creations, who created and has preserved me to this day. I'm also very grateful to the University of Ibadan for preserving its department of classics, now the only surviving classics department in the whole country. Without this department, I will not be delivering this lecture today. I'm grateful to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Folake, and the Dean of Arts, Professor Folake, for giving me the opportunity to present this lecture. I owe a huge debt of gratitude to my parents. First to my father, the tall, slender woman, a disciplinarian who inculcated in me from an early age to love for books, who though not diseased, has been with me in spirit, Mr. Festus Akinwole Olapetun, Wolani Obayi, ọmọ ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ wúwo, ọmọ ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ náà, ọmọ nípa ìgbẹ́ I will be forever grateful. You will always remain young, Folake common. In my academic pursuits and career, my debts grow by the day. I owe a lot of people gratitude, definitely more than I can possibly recollect here. However, I thank my academic father, Professor James Atane Lebare. I'm so glad that God has spared me to witness this day, Baba, and has been able to do you proud. God has not allowed your labors to go in vain. Thank you very much. I will also be forever grateful to Ambassador another worthy alumnus of the Department of Classics, who has been of tremendous encouragement to me. I also like to place on record the contributions of Professor Olongo Juade, another worthy alumnus of the department, to my academic success. I'm very grateful to Professor Festus Agbola Adesoye, who is not only an academic mentor, but also a surrogate father, and for whom I have a very special place in my heart. He not only hails from the same town as my father, but also bear the same first name. To Professor I also hold a debt of gratitude. I'm also grateful to Professor Femi and Professor Nicholas Robinson, Professor Bejam, Mrs. Adepelukas. I also acknowledge Professor Ayobando, Professor Ayobandoshe, Professor Dan Zebali, and Professor Onyabo, who have been of support to me at some time or the other in my academic career. I must acknowledge all my colleagues, staff, and students in the Department of Classics, University of Ibadan. With their love, patience, tolerance, and cooperation, the department has removed the total of crisis that was once interpolating and has now done the total of progress. I mention here especially Professor Obafemi Kutore and Mr. Nigel Henry, who are my teachers. I must also acknowledge another teacher, Professor Mili Oshundare, the man whose hands guided my creative mind, and who later became my friend, and whom I shall always hold in very high esteem. I've enjoyed the relationship of mutual love and support from colleagues and older colleagues from the Faculty of Arts, and I use them without no particular order. I acknowledge you all. I've also carried out collaborative work with mentors and colleagues and academic friends outside Ibadan. I acknowledge them all. I've also been blessed by special friends, some of whom I grew up with and others whom God brought into my life at some point. These people have been of tremendous support to me, and they have stood by me through thick and thin. I wish to acknowledge them all. I will not be where I am today without my very large and supportive family. My brothers, my sisters, my nephews, my children, my grandchildren. This large family of mine also include Mr. and Mrs. Olifade, Mr. and Mrs. Agaramola, Chief and Mrs. Adeshida, Mr. and Mrs. Ayoride, Pastor and Pastor Mrs. Folake, Pastor and Mrs. Onayemi, Mrs. Adero Akonfe, Mrs. Ellen Benebishi, and so I must not fail to acknowledge the love and support of my octogenarian mother-in-law, Mrs. M.B. George. Mama has become to me another mother. And to all the ladies of the George household and members of the Ajayi family of Oshogbo, I say thank you all. I thank all the members and leadership of Christ Jubilee Church of Occupy World Outreach Ministries in Ibadan, and especially my pastors, Reverend Victor and Reverend Mrs. Beatrice Amosu, Pastor Mike and Deaconess Nick Adenihu, Pastor Soji and Deaconess Olumide for their love and support all these years. Evangelist Pepe has also been of immense support to me. I also acknowledge all those years of Our Lady of Apostles Secondary School, very well Ibadan, present here at this lecture. Last but not least, I thank my husband, Mr. Onayemi, who has given me the space and support to be what I wanted to be. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, be very conscious of the ring structure which I have applied in this lecture. I consider it appropriate, indeed inevitable, that I end it with the last three stanzas of my poem, Winter Breweries, with which I began the lecture. Life is short. How then do we need the pains and horrors of war? Life is too short. The hours cannot fulfill the many demands of its days. Life is far too short. Let us devote it to the truth, for we have only one life. Mr. Vice Chancellor, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends and family, I thank you all for your patience and for listening to this lecture. God bless you.